And from the shores of Lake Ontario and into the Al Roker studio, welcome to the NFL Draft Kickoff Special on WTOP 10. My name is Alex Brooks, and me and a couple of my buddies will give you 1 hour of full draft coverage. So let's take a look at that rundown for the show. Here coming up right now, maybe.
Possibly.
There's
a chance.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
All right, at 10:30, it's going to be our intro. We're going to talk about our biggest splash players, sleepers, trades, and boomer bust. Me, Kenny, and Kyle will go through that segment in A block. And then at 10:37, we're going to welcome the draft insiders of Zach Malamud and Ryan Joyce and have a mock draft roundtable. At 11:28, it'll be our final thoughts. And then at 11:30, we'll say our goodbyes and we'll wish you a happy draft week. So now I would like to finally introduce two of the four people that will be joining this show from the Kenny and Kyle's experience, Kenny Gerard and Kyle Spizak. Guys, how you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm going to talk about some football today. And, well, Kyle, how are you feeling?
It's a pleasure to be here. I mean, nothing better than talking about some draft football, the combination of the two best sports, college and NFL.
Man, I got two guys who were in the booth calling hockey, excuse me. I'm just so fired up. And now you guys are going to be talking about some NFL draft. I'm excited, guys. I'm really excited.
Yeah, it doesn't get better than draft week, right? It's the most electric week in football.
Absolutely is.
It doesn't. Kicking off this draft special, let's talk about our biggest splash players. So, Kenny, let's have you start off on your biggest splash players in the draft.
So I'm going to take from my splash player, it's going to be the clear and obvious answer. It's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State. I mean, 67 receptions on the year, 1,211 yards. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. 14 touchdowns. He's going to be the biggest impact player coming out of this draft. Now, we know we talked a lot about the quarterbacks that are in this draft, but we're sleeping on Marvin Harrison a little bit too much, I think.
Wow.
I mean,
Kyle?
I don't know if we're sleeping on, because this man I want to say arguably since his season, his 2022 season, I think at the end of that, everyone kind of knew it was a consensus he was going to be a top 5 pick no matter what. Once he did become draft eligible this season, everybody kind of knew, even with the injury and the end of the semifinal game against Georgia, everyone kind of knew he was still going to go top 5.
Yeah, it may not be that we're sleeping on him, but it may be that we're overlooking him with the quarterback classes coming in this year.
Yeah, I feel like Marvin Harrison kind of flies under that radar. As you mentioned, the QB class is really overshadowing everything right now. It's a lot of QBs are going to go in this first round, and Marvin Harrison is kind of like that token piece that maybe people will forget about, and we'll see where he goes here in this mock draft coming up. So we'll move things over. Kenny, you're going to be hosting this segment out here.
Yeah, well, while Kyle and Alex enjoy sleeping on my picks, let's see who they think is being slept on this NFL draft. Since we were just talking about who's being slept on, let's start with Kyle here. Kyle, what do you got here?
All right.
I mean, if we're talking about sleepers, I think it's hard not to go with. Is it night-night time?
Sleeping? Night-night?
Sleeping time?
Who are we sleeping
Sleeping
on?
time.
Who are we sleeping on?
My mind's blanking, if I'm being completely honest with you. I had it so loaded up and ready to go. There we go. Thank you. Assistant Troy Franklin. His last 3 years at Oregon really blew up this last season. Bo Nix and him had a great chemistry together, and you can kind of see that jumping from each season. He starts off with 2 touchdowns, only 18 receptions in his freshman year, and that goes up to 81 receptions, near 1,400 yards, and 14 touchdowns last season. I mean, that's one of the best seasons you can get as a receiver, with double-digit touchdown and then almost 1,400 yards on not even 100 receptions. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it really is impressive. I'm going to move over to, we were talking about it, the quarterbacks. One of the quarterbacks that's kind of being slept on a little bit, put your head to the pillow at night, is Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington. You see that right there. His 2023 stats, he lost the national championship 34-13, but if you don't take that in account, he was on fire all season. Almost 5,000 yards, 36 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and sixth in QBR. And from last year, we saw it throughout all the media outlets. All I heard was Penix, and he's my sleeper.
No doubt. I mean, Penix is a great player, but boys, one of the things we didn't incorporate into our personal draft is the possibility of how many trades are going to go down on draft day. So, Brooks, I'll start with you. What is your prediction for what's going to be the biggest trade that we see come draft day on Thursday?
I mean, definitely I got to go the Minnesota Vikings. As you see in the full screen, Minnesota, I feel like they're going to need this quarterback. I mean, I mentioned it earlier on Stick to Sports last episodes last semester. They need a franchise quarterback after Cousins went to Atlanta. He signed that deal with the Falcons, and they have the ammunition to do it. They have 2 first-round picks. They can use one of those first-round picks to go up into the 5 or 6 range, and I feel like that they will draft one of those top QBs if they fall. Maybe Jaden Daniels, maybe Drake May, maybe J.J. McCarthy will be there for the Vikings today, so I'm going to say Minnesota is going to do a draft day trade.
I'm not going to say it's a bad take at all. I think it's a good one, and I do think that Minnesota needs a quarterback, but I almost imagine that he's going to drop down a little bit. But I'm going to take the Raiders, going to draft up to 2 or 3. The Raiders need a quarterback, and I think they're going to go up and try and take Jaden Daniels in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I feel like the Raiders and Minnesota, they're both going to want to trade up and get their franchise guy. Now let's move into our boom or bust segment. So Spizak, I know you haven't talked in this segment, so I'm going to give it to you. Caleb Williams, boom or bust? What's your opinion?
If there's an option between boom and bust, I'm going to add a third option. I'm going to say mid.
Oh,
I'm gonna go right down the middle with. I'm gonna go with mid for Caleb Williams. I mean, coming out of college, this guy, we saw what he did. Steps in as a freshman at Oklahoma, balls out under Lincoln Riley there. His freshman year has almost a Heisman season there alone. Comes in, takes over for Spencer Rattler, really drives that program from not collapsing that season. Transfers to USC, wins his Heisman that year, and then last year, I mean, he looked great to start the year last year, but we saw him start to show the chinks in the armor last year as well. A lot of games, such as the Stanford game, me and Kenny have discussed this a lot of times. Stanford comes back against USC, and just overall, I mean, Caleb Williams, I feel like he's just going to pan out to be mid. He has the intangibles. I think he has too much of personal problems off the field. That's going to kind of get in his way.
Yeah, Kenny, what do you think about that?
I think for how highly he's looked at, bust. He's not going to go up to the level that he's supposed to be at easily.
All right. Well, we got some hot takes here about Caleb Williams, so we'll move over to another offensive star, Brock Bowers, the tight end. So, Kenny, who are you gonna? Is it gonna be boom or bust with Brock Bowers?
I'll make it short and sweet. One of the best teams in the country for a long time. Only lose 1 game, miss out in the college football playoffs. He's booming. 100% going to be a boom in the NFL.
Business is booming. 2 national championships speak for themselves, and he was a key part of both those championships.
Exactly. I mean, they kind of have the defense. They're talking about the defense a lot, but Brock Bowers, I mean, he was one of the offensive catalysts for those national championships. So I agree with you both on Brock Bowers. And that will do it for our first out of 2 segments. But don't go anywhere, because we're going to be joined by Zach Malamud and Ryan Joyce on our official mock draft roundtable here on WTOP 10. We'll be right back.
Would you like to try snacks from faraway lands? Or snacks with bizarre flavors? How about snacks in new ways? Or snacks you've never tried before? You don't have to go far to find these snacks. They can all be found here at Snacks on West First Street.
Yeah, we're walking around campus, and what do we see? All these clubs are looking.
They looking for me.
There's hockey,
There's improv,
so much to see. So let's go try them out and see how they be. Come on and please watch.
Our embarrassments free.
Tune in to Amateurs on WTOP.
Happy Friday, Lakers, and another beautiful day here in Oswego, New York. I'm DJ Don Perone, and I'm happy that you're starting your weekend off right listening to WNYO 88.9 FM, the Laker Radio Network.
I said, darling, can you see? There's no room for us. There's no room. Now our lives are changing. Promises keep slipping. And I always knew it wasn't you. It wasn't you. Now our lives are changing. Promises keep slipping.
And welcome back to the WTOP10 NFL Draft Kickoff Special here in the Al Roker Studio. So now let's introduce from Original Productions Laker Connections, Ryan Joyce and Zach Malamud. How are you guys doing tonight?
I am the #1 Brock Purdy fan, so I like that graphic. I'm doing awesome. Obviously, draft week, I'm super excited. Got a lot of picks coming up here, Brooks. I'm excited to talk about.
For sure. Zach?
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. It should be a good one. Thank you guys for having us on, and should be a good one. I'm excited.
Of course, of course. So let's take a look at those mock draft roundtable rules here as a full screen will come up. And here we go, mock draft rules. The #1 is no trades will be allowed. So, you know, it would be a little complicated if we had Kenny interrupt Joyce or Kyle interrupt Zach with the trades and everything. We're going to keep it real simple. #2 is after the selection, it's going to be an open discussion. So anybody can put in their thoughts or opinions. And then #3, it's all in good fun. We're supposed to have fun up here, and we're going to have a good time. So let's take a look at the draft order. Everyone wants to know who's going to be going first, who's going to get the #1 pick, who's going to get the last pick. Here we go. Kenny is going to start off at #1. Then it's going to go me at #2, Spizak at #3, Joyce at #4, and then Zach at #5. We might have done this to get maybe our favorite teams. Maybe. I don't know.
There's a few picks
No
I
way.
want to talk about. There's a few in there.
Just a couple. But yeah, that is the draft order for this roundtable. And here we go. We are going to start off with Kenny Gerard. You are on the clock. #1, Chicago Bears. Who we going?
Dun, 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 dun,
Oh,
dun,
man.
dun.
This is a tough one here. I mean, it's not like anybody's guessing this, but since I got the time for it. The next Trevor Lawrence of this draft, the next bust of the draft, the next prodigy will be going #1 from USC to the Chicago Bears, and that's quarterback Caleb Williams. So Caleb Williams, he's got a resume. Last year, 266 for 388 attempts to completion, a 68.6 completion percentage, 3,633 yards, 30 touchdowns, 5 picks, and an 82.3 QBR. The only thing with Caleb Williams, I like to believe that championships talk, and I don't think he has that in his resume. But besides that, he's going to be a great quarterback for the Bears. I just don't think he's going to live up to the hype that everybody has him at right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. Obviously, he's going to go #1. But I think the only thing I have against Caleb Williams, I think that most of the plays he made in college were kind of outside of the pocket when the plays were breaking down. That's the only thing. You said not really a winning player. He did win a lot of big games at USC and Oklahoma, but I just think he hasn't really played in a system yet. And I'm kind of interested to see how he plays in the NFL system. Has some weapons, you know, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, some big guys on the team, but just I don't know how it's going to work there. So that's the only thing I really have against him, but really good player, great arm.
Yeah, I agree with what you said and what you said, Kenny. We're going to move over to the #2 pick, the Washington Commanders. So I'm going to select quarterback Drake May from the University of North Carolina. Just a couple years later, it was Mitchell Trubisky to the said Bears, drafting in 2017. Now it's going to be Drake May from UNC. You see their Commanders, they need a franchise quarterback. I mean, they haven't had a really big franchise quarterback since, I mean, Taylor Heineke. We talked about Sam Howell, those development projects. I mean, now they're going to have someone who is there to be that franchise quarterback. And I was hearing with Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels said that he didn't really want to be a Commander. So, I mean, if it's kind of like that Eli Manning situation, it's like you don't want me to be here, then I'm not going to draft you and kind of expose you in a way if you don't want to be a Commander.
And I mean, I think that Drake May does have really good raw potential when it comes to his just athletic ability, his vision down the field, being able to find the open routes and drop it into those tight zones that really don't have many open pockets. He has the good potential to do that. I think with the right coaching, he can develop into a very strong pocket passing QB. The problem is, I don't think Washington has the coach to develop him into that next level talent. I think it's going to be like every quarterback project we've ever seen in Washington. Only one that ever did somewhat okay was RG3, and the turf monster took him out. So,
Yeah, no, I mean, 9 interceptions, 63% completion percentage. I think he's a big-time project that Washington would have to deal with versus Daniels, who I think he's NFL ready.
Yeah, definitely a big-time project. So I'm going to move over to Spizak for your New England Patriots. For your team, who are you going to pick at number 3 overall?
And I'm throwing everyone a curveball here. I've already heard so much flack from just the guys at this table for my pick that I'm
Can't
taking
believe
here.
this.
I'm taking Marvin Harrison.
Oh,
Wow.
Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to go number 3rd overall.
Oh,
for the Patriots.
God.
Listen, hey, before we get too many boos, at least let me give my reasoning for it. All right. This is a generational talent, one of the most amazing prospects at wide receiver we've ever seen. He's just a spectacle. Everybody wants him. Every team wants him. The Patriots, I don't think any of the QBs in the draft right now fit the kind of system they run. They're not going to take a Jaden Daniels, who, although he is a fantastic player, I just don't think he fits that system of New England at all whatsoever. They like their pocket passer. I think they'll wait till the 2nd or 3rd round. They'll pick up a guy there, or even wait till next year, possibly. Quinn Ewers is coming out next year.
Oh, God.
But listen, Marvin Harrison is a talent you can't pass up on. You cannot pass up on him.
It is if you need a quarterback.
Joyce, get your thoughts.
I kind of agree. Marvin Harrison, the best player available at that spot, 100%. But in this QB draft, Kyle, you can't go without taking a quarterback. You can't, man. I mean, new head coach, you got to find a guy who's going to be a rookie quarterback coming in, fill that system. I don't think you guys need a receiver. I think you need a new era of New England Patriots football, need to get a quarterback. And Marvin Harrison, best receiver in the draft, really top-tier player, just not going to help you, man, if you got bums throwing the ball to him.
There's a bit of a downfall, I think, as well for the Patriots, though. Just they didn't have receivers for Mac Jones to throw to when he came into the league, so they kind of do need a receiver core for a QB to throw to.
Well, the draft has shaken up here on the NFL Draft Kickoff on WTOP 10, so we'll move it over to Ryan Joyce, who had a lot of opinions on that Marvin Harrison Jr. pick. So now the Arizona Cardinals, they're on the clock.
We're going to go back-to-back wide receivers. We're going to go Malik Neighbors to go into the Cardinals. I think Kyler Murray, a guy who really been doubted here the past couple of years, he's going to have a big comeback year come up this year. Does not have any receivers. Greg Dortch and Michael Wilson, those are not the 1 and 2 guys you normally want on your team. Really big play threat, 17 yards per catch last year, 9 touchdowns, really fast, explosive speed guy. He's the number 2, I believe, best receiver in the draft. I think he's going to be a really good guy. Arizona, like I said, Kyler Murray coming back, need a big play guy coming up this year, especially in a really tough NFC West. I think he's going to be a big spot there.
Yeah.
I mean, a dynamic playmaker at wide receiver is Malik Neighbors. I think Arizona, if Harrison is gone, like Mr. Spizak said here, then I think they have an option of trading down and maybe getting some picks back. I think he's their guy, Marvin Harrison. So if he's not there, they can go a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, and we're going to move over back to Zach. You are now on the clock with the Los Angeles Chargers. Who are you picking here?
Yeah, well, I mean, the top 2 wide receivers are gone in Neighbors and in Marvin Harrison Jr., so why not? Well, let's make it 3 in a row. Rome Odunze out of Washington. I mean, a great season for him with Michael Penix being his quarterback. 92 receptions, 1,600 yards, 13 touchdowns. I mean, this guy has an argument to be the number 1 wide receiver in the draft. But there's a problem. He has Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors in front of him. So he's stuck at number 3. This guy is all-world talent. Could be number 1 in any other draft class besides this year.
I mean, even at Washington, that was arguably the best receiver core other than Ohio State last season with McMillan and Polk there. And Rome was still their number 1 go-to guy. And like you said, you got Harbaugh coming in now. Justin Herbert needs a receiver now that Allen's gone. Yep. I think that's a perfect fit. There, you don't get a better fit there, I don't think.
Yeah, quickly, I mean, I agree. Quinn Johnson's also there as well, but he's shown last year he's not really the number 1 guy for that team. So new coach, got Justin Herbert, needs that big player, especially you lose Keenan Allen. At 6'3", really good size. I think he's going to be a really good pickup for the Chargers if he gets to him.
Yeah, I feel like the Chargers will benefit from any 3 of those wide receivers. I feel like, as you were mentioning, Zach, I mean, he is that 3rd wide receiver, but I feel like if he wasn't in this stacked class with Harrison and Neighbors, I feel like he would have been that number 1 guy. I feel like, you know, with that Marvin Harrison Jr. pick, I don't know if he's going to go to the Patriots, so he might move down to somewhere like the Bears, or maybe the Broncos might pick him up in the later teen round. So we'll move over back to Kenny Gerard, your New York Football Giants. I don't really like saying that, but your New York Football Giants are on the clock at number 6. Who are we going?
Well, in a Kyle Spizak-less world, it was probably going to be a Odunze going to the Giants. They hold on to Daniel Jones and continue, but that's not this world. This is our mock draft. And if Jaden Daniels happens to fall this low in the real world, then give me Jaden Daniels to the New York Giants. Daniel Jones, get out of here. He's gone. It's Jaden Daniels all the way, and he has the numbers to prove it. His numbers better than Caleb Williams last year. His only thing, I don't know how he fits in a mobile quarterback scenario for the Giants. We've had Eli Manning and Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones can run, but it's never really been a mobile quarterback room for the New York Giants. That's my only thing with Jaden Daniels, but you can't pass up on a talent like that with the opportunity being presented to you. I mean, if I were the New York Giants, I would not pass on Jaden Daniels at 6.
If he gets to 6, that is unbelievable
Yeah,
for the Giants.
yeah.
Personally, he's the best quarterback in the draft by a mile, I think. Really good player, really good dynamic player. What stands out does not turn the football over. Does not turn over. The stats speak for
he had
itself.
4
40
interceptions,
touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Really good player. He's the most dynamic player. He's maybe not be the fastest runner or the best passer, but he's the best that can split with those two, and I think he's going to be really good. If the Giants get him, I think he'll be the quarterback franchise guy for a long time.
Yeah, I feel like you can agree with me on this. Like, Giants fans are looking for that guy. I mean, they had Daniel Jones. He won 1 playoff game. Hasn't really done much since. So, I mean, I feel like Jaden Daniels will go in there, and Giants fans will be happy with that.
It's been a long time, man. It's been a real long. It's been a rough couple of years, man.
So we'll move over to the AFC South down in Tennessee, down in Nashville for the Tennessee Titans. They are on the clock, and I am going to select offensive lineman Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. I feel like he's one of the best offensive linemen in this draft. I mean, the Titans, they're going to need offensive line help. They need protection for newly acquired Tony Pollard and Will Levis, a young franchise quarterback, and he will be that guy to help them. I feel like he had a first-team AP All-American in 2022. I mean, he's a big guy. He is going to, you know, it's not that sexy pick. It's not that pick that everybody really wants, especially wanting that high playmaker, as you've seen with Levis and Pollard. But I feel like you need to build from the trenches. I mean, the successful teams, they build from the trenches, and Joe Alt is going to be that guy.
And he's arguably the best lineman there is in this entire draft, and in all of college football. I mean, he's big. He stands tall. I mean, he protected Hartman and great all season long. The running game for Notre Dame was a huge point this year because, large part, due to him being able to open up the gaps where the running backs could actually get through.
Yeah, I was going to say just quickly, Levis, and they bring in Calvin Ridley, they brought in Tony Pollard, all great offenses with those talented players. It all starts in the trenches with those offensive linemen. So add a big-time offensive lineman here in Joe Alt. He's clearly the top one in the draft.
I mean, I'll even throw my 2 cents in here. As a former lineman, you ain't got no quarterback and you ain't got no team without the big dog. So I like that pick.
Exactly. Definitely. We're going to move on here. But before we do, Joyce, your mic is off. We're going to need someone to go out there and help us. Do we have anybody from the audience that can help with Joyce's mic? We're not going to sugarcoat it here. We're going to make sure to have his mic changed up here before he gets in there.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, I think we can hear him now.
Whoa.
There we go.
Joyce learns technology
All
as a
right.
senior in college. It's great.
There we go. So let's move on to Kyle Spisak. Let me look at my chart real quick. Titans, Falcons. You are now on the clock, Kyle Spisak.
All right, I'm just going to speed run this one real quick. I think that they're going to go with Dallas Turner out of Alabama. He's the best edge rusher in this entire draft. He's just outstanding season last year. 53 tackles, 10 sacks, 28 of them being solo on the year. And each year, he just gets better and better. That's exactly what you want to see. And when you're playing in a program like Alabama and you see that level of improvement each year and how much they have to compete within their own team alone to get a spot, you're always going to get a good edge rusher out of Alabama regardless.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to move over, just really quickly, we're going to move over to Joyce. The Chicago Bears, their second pick. They just picked Caleb Williams in this mock draft. Who we going here?
So I think they're going to go defense. I'm going to go Liatu Latu. Led the country in pass rush win rate last year, 40%. Really good player. The only concern they had was a head injury at Washington the year before that, but all the doctors said he's fine, good to go. Slippery type of player. He lines up in a lot of different spots, which is kind of the modern day NFL player. You're not really stuck on the inside or the outside. Really good player, awesome at UCLA, and I think get that defense tightened up because the offense is on the up and up there for Chicago. Get a great defensive player, and I think defense is the way to go here for the Bears.
Yeah, 13 sacks last year. I mean, that's remarkable. He's clearly the top edge rusher, and I think this is a shaky situation for Chicago because they're at 9. If a guy gets picked that they wanted, they could trade down. They have a lot of different options here, but I mean, grabbing Latu, you can't go wrong with that.
No, you can't go wrong with that. And I feel like the going offense, defense, that's really important for a Chicago Bears team who's trying to rebuild on both sides of the ball. They're trying to rebuild on the offense, getting Caleb Williams, getting Keenan Allen, a lot of offensive firepower, but you got to take care of the defense. Defense wins championships out here, so I feel like it's a good play to go with Latu for the Bears. But we're going to move over to JETS, Jets, over to Zach Malamba, the Jets insider here. Zach, what are we going with?
I got my green tie on. Go Jets. I'm going Brock Bowers. I mean, talent-wise, I think he's top 10 in the draft. It's just about keeping it consistent as he did at Georgia for those couple of years. He had a couple different quarterbacks, and he just worked well with those guys. I think in this draft, the Jets will be looking for a tight end. That's their one weakness really on offense. I mean, if they get Brock Bowers, adding to that offense, scary under Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Aaron Rodgers coming back from that ACL injury, you'll see what happens. I mean, you've obviously seen, like, in his old age, we'll see if he comes back stronger, but you've seen people from ACL injuries before. They've come back stronger, or they haven't come back the same. So, I mean, but it's looking really scary with Brock Bowers there, and I mean, he's a proven winner, a golden guy for the New York Jets. We are going to move over to Kenny Gerard, number 11, the Minnesota Vikings at number 11. Who are we going with?
Well, when you got a guy like Penix on the board, this might be not the world's greatest pick, but I think for Minnesota's scheme, J.J. McCarthy will fit here. And this seems to be the place where I think he will thrive in. I mean, he's got the championship ring. We talked earlier, championships talk. He has that with him. Now, did he have a great team and a great core? Absolutely. Do the Vikings have Jay Jetta? Yes, they do. So I think J.J. McCarthy, he can fit in with the Minnesota Vikings here.
I think it's an awesome pick. I think they have the guys around him. You have Justin Jefferson. You have players that can make really dynamic plays that are on that team. I think they're just looking for a running back is kind of what they need to fill that whole scheme. But obviously a winner, really figured it out. What impressed me the most, though, in those games, I think that J.J. McCarthy played, we haven't seen him pass the deep ball very much. But on the third downs in big plays when he needed to make a play, he really made a play, and it was huge overall for that Michigan team. So he's a proven winner. I think he's just kind of you're not really sure what's going to happen in the pros, but I think it's going to be a really good pickup if you get the dynamic guys around him like Hockenson and Jefferson.
I mean, he did have some good plays last year. Obviously, they won a national championship with Roman Wilson. He was his main target last year. But even then, even with that, he didn't target Wilson too much. And we saw in some of the bowl games when it does get to those crunch time situations, he has to throw on the run. He can, but it's a 50-50 every time he does it. You don't really know. And we didn't get to see the full potential of him because Michigan is such a run-heavy offense that other players may be taking 40 pass attempts in a game. He's taking 20.
Yeah, and we'll move over from the Minnesota Vikings to the Denver Broncos, the Russell Wilson-less Denver Broncos here now, and I am on the clock, and I'm going to select a defensive back, Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo. He's one of the top corners in this draft. I mean, you look at the stats, he had 92 solo tackles, 30 assists, 122 total tackles, and he also had 6 interceptions. I mean, this guy's a ball hawk. I mean, he's definitely someone who you can really pair with Patrick Surtain, and that defensive back will look very scary. I mean, you only have Baron Browning as your second guy on the depth chart. I feel like for the Broncos, if you want to get that corner, you want to have your defense looking very scary. I mean, the no-fly zone in the Denver Broncos with Quinyon Mitchell, I feel like that would be very lethal.
Yeah, size, speed, a playmaker, one of the top cornerbacks in the draft, arguably the top guy. I think Denver, if you have him on the other side of Surtain, it could be really, really strong for their defense. They could go quarterback. I don't think this early.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad take at all. I mean, you kind of want to go for a quarterback when you don't have one, but I think it's a good pick. I think it'll fit well with Surtain.
All right, so we are 12 picks in, and we are cooking right now. We are going to move it over to Kyle Spisak. Man, I'm forgetting there's a bunch of teams. I'm forgetting what the order is. The Las Vegas Raiders. Who are we picking here?
I'm going to go with offensive tackle Olu Fashanu. When you take a look at the Raiders, do they need a QB? Yes. Gardner Minshew is serviceable for the time being. He's good enough to get them through where they need to be right now. But if you want to build things back up, you got, like you said, Kenny, you got to start it in the trenches. You got to start it from the line. And Olu's proved himself at Penn State. He stood tall all 4 years. kind of helped them have those really good runs in the season last year, or the year before they went 11-2, large part because the run game was so successful because of him. Raiders, they need to get that going first before they can then bring in a quarterback. I think maybe they can pick one up in the round 2, look down in the future, look for some trades, and then they got to get a running back now too with Josh Jacobs out. So focus on what you can control right now, and that is the line.
Yeah, I think it's a great take. If the Raiders don't trade their way up to get a quarterback, I think that's a great pick. Olu is definitely the second best lineman in the draft class. There's no question about that for me. You're a big Penn State guy, so here you're going with him.
Oh, just a little
I
bit.
had no idea.
Tiny bit. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick.
There.
Good pick.
All right, so
Even a broke clock's right twice a day.
Yeah, right.
So we'll move over to number 14 here. Joyce, you are going to take the New Orleans Saints, the Thomas Turgeon fan, New Orleans Saints. So Ryan, Joyce, who are we picking?
We are going to go with an offensive lineman. We're going to go J.C. Latham. Massive frame guy, really good lineman, one of the best in the draft. I think right below Joe Alt, I think, personally, in my opinion. Really quick feet and pass protection, is a great run blocker. And his nickname is the Trench King. If you nickname yourself the Trench King, you have to be good at football. You can't be a bad football player. So I think the Saints are in a pretty good spot right now. They have some talent there. They're kind of in a not really going to know what direction they go into kind of thing. But I think get that lineman, get it really set up, and be a really good pick.
I was going to say, did you see Derek Carr last year running for his life?
Running for his life,
Someone to help the guy out, man.
I was going to say, offensive line's probably a must for New Orleans. And, I mean, there's a ton, and I mean a ton of offensive linemen in this first round, so might as well grab one.
Especially with Trevor Penning just not panning out the way that they expected him to from the last 2 years in the draft. He had the time to prove himself. Even off the gates, they kind of knew he had temperament issues, and I mean, he just hasn't panned out at all. Eventually, you just got to start rebuilding and move on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, with offensive linemen, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of strange because those top offensive linemen, they sometimes work out, they sometimes don't. I mean, you're seeing a bunch of offensive linemen. It's just kind of like finding a diamond in the rough when you're building through the trenches. So we'll move over to Zach Malamud for the Indianapolis Colts. Here, who are we picking for Indianapolis?
Yeah, I'm going defense here. They could go a ton of different ways, but I think an edge rusher in Jared Verse out of Florida State, 9 sacks last year, really powerful guy on the edge, and I mean, he has an argument right next to a guy like Dallas Turner or some of the other guys, Liatu Latu. I mean, he's right there with them, just athletic, versatile, and they call him a game wrecker on the defensive line. That doesn't tell you, I don't know what will.
I mean, what's the last time we heard who was a game wrecker? Aaron Donald.
There you go.
Aaron Donald, the Los Angeles Rams. He just retired. He might be passing the torch over to Jared Verse. I mean, it's a little premature saying that, but when you're
a tiny bit there, bro.
I know. This entire hour.
Well, I'm just saying. Well, there's another wild take, but we'll get to that. But I mean, Jared Verse. I mean, if you're known as a game wrecker, I mean, that is scary for offensive linemen in the NFL. So we'll see if he pans out in Indianapolis.
Only concern I have, I believe he's 24 years old. So that's one thing. You don't know if he's kind of reached his peak or where he's going to be, but really good player there for Florida State.
Yeah, really good player. We'll move over to the Seattle Seahawks. Kenny Gerard, who are we picking out in Seattle, Washington?
Yeah, this is a tough one because Seattle can go a few ways, but I'm going to take Jatavian Sanders. I think they need a tight end. They have a decent tight end. I just don't see Fant pulling it off next season. I don't know, Mud doesn't like this take.
Talk about wild.
They could go defense. I'm taking him. I think he is going to be great in Seattle. I think he'll fit into their scheme. And honestly, you guys see the stats on the screen there.
2 touchdowns.
He's a good receiver. He's a way better tight end blocker. I think he's better on the line as well. You may look at me like I'm crazy right now.
He could be great. He's a great player. 16th overall? He's a second-round talent.
No.
You got a lot of needs for Seattle.
16 overall. It's not like Brock Bowers and dropping and then the next best tight end, he's a second rounder. I love Jatavian Sanders. Seattle could grab him with their next pick. Yeah. They don't need him at 16. Get one of these first-round talents.
Joyce, what do we say to that?
I mean, Zach kind of took it away there, but it's just I don't really know if that's the best pick for the Seahawks. I don't really know if that's kind of the direction they want to go into. Guy could be a really good player, but probably in the 3rd round, not the 1st round.
Wow.
Third round talent. All right.
Hey, we've seen it before in the NFL draft. I mean, the Raiders have taken guys, the Patriots, Cole Strange.
I was gonna say Chattanooga.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's been a lot of reaches here in the 1st round. So who knows if Seattle will take Kenny Gerard's advice
What's
for the
a
tight
draft
end.
without a reach? I mean, you got to have that
That's
reach
true.
player in
That's
there.
true.
I mean, we can go all chalk here. We can be all happy,
fired.
but like we need a reach in there, and I think that's my good reach. If it happens, it is what it is.
Exactly. We'll move over to the number 17 pick with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'm taking Terrion Arnold. He is one of the top cornerbacks from Alabama. His nickname on Twitter/X is Ghost. And I mean, you know, as someone who's a ghost, I mean, hopefully he's able to be visible on the defensive field. If I can make analogies, I can't make analogies for anything. But anyway, the 2023 stats, he had 63 total tackles. He had a sack and an interception. I feel like he's right behind Mitchell. And I feel like this cornerback class is very deep. And I feel like for Arnold, he will fit well with Jacksonville. The 7 out of 8 drafts, the Jags have went defense. So I feel like they're very, they put an importance on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the first round.
Yeah, he was a field general at Alabama. He's a number 1 corner. I mean, a guy who could go near the top 10. We have him at 17 now. I mean, he could go a lot higher than that, right next to Mitchell up top there. So a big pick for the Jaguars.
You know, I agree. I think, only a guy 20 years old was obviously the top guy there at Alabama. But what I do kind of remember from him is he is a really aggressive player, caused a decent amount of penalties there at Alabama too. So that's the one thing in a bigger physical NFL. We'll see how it goes. But at 20 years old, really great talent. This would be a steal for the Jaguars to get him at this pick, I think.
Definitely at number 17. But we'll move over to Kyle Spisak, number 18. I keep referencing this sheet right here. All right, the Cincinnati Bengals at number 18. Kyle, who are we picking here?
I'm going to stick with the O-line trend we've been running with. I mean, it's been a very heavy O-line draft from us, but Talise Fuaga out of Oregon State, I got to go with it. I mean, just look at the build of this man. 6'6", 334 pounds. He's coming out of Tacoma, just went right down to Corvallis to play down with the Beavs, which, rest in peace, the Pac-12, Pac-2. But, I mean, if you're looking at the Bengals, what do they need the most? Line. Joe Burrow, generational quarterback talent. He's constantly getting hurt, or he's chasing around. He's running around, getting hurt, missing the season. What, Jake Browning was the quarterback for how long last season? You're not going to have – this is a team that was removed from the Super Bowl in, 2021, 2022?
Yep.
So it's not like they don't have the talent. Jamar Chase is there. It's just the fact Burrow hasn't had the protection he needs to be able to really succeed. Their defense is lacking as well. Yes, they could go with a defensive pick here as well. But you spend that much money on Burrow, you got to protect him.
Yeah, no, I agree completely with that pick. I mean, I'm an avid LSU guy. I hate to see my boy Joe Burrow back there getting walloped every game because I have no line. That's a big boy, 6'6", 300 some odd pounds. That's a great pick. I'm full for that one.
Yeah, Joe Burrow definitely needs to be protected. I mean, we've seen it before. They've gotten some O-linemen, so maybe they won't go O-linemen in this first round, but I feel like they're going to have to address that at some point, and it doesn't hurt to have a lot of big beef in front of you, especially with Cincinnati. We'll move over to the Los Angeles Rams. We'll move over to Ryan Joyce, the rival of the San Francisco 49ers. Who are we picking for the Rams?
I think the real thing I thought about here is obviously Aaron Donald retires there in the offseason. I'm going to go with Marius Mims from Georgia. Kind of a, project player. Only made 6 starts at Georgia. Started 6 this year. Didn't play much the last year before. But I really think it's about, you had Matthew Stafford. The window's still there. You still have really good talents. Puka Nacua came out of nowhere last year. You have Cooper Kupp. Keep Matthew Stafford healthy, and a guy, 6'8", 340, a raw talent kind of player. I think if you can keep Matthew Stafford protected in that pocket and make plays, I know he's a little bit of a project, but I think at that size, he can definitely learn to pass block in the NFL and be a really good player.
Yeah, 6'8", 340. I mean, that man is a mountain. So, I mean, just looking at it, the Rams, I think this is a spot they could trade down. I mean, they don't usually take a lot of first-round picks. If they stay there, great pick here with Amarius.
I think protect that line, O-line, D-line is really what they need to look at in this draft.
Definitely.
They haven't had a first-round pick in the McVay era there.
Yeah, they haven't.
They haven't had
Since
a single one.
2016, yeah.
Jared, Jared Goff was the last first-round pick that the Rams had.
I mean, they had 2 Super Bowl appearances in a ring. I'm sure they're not upset about that. But we'll move over to Zach. The Steelers, the Russell Wilson / Justin Field led Pittsburgh Steelers. Are we having a weapon for both of them?
We definitely are, and I don't think this guy's dropping this far, but if the Steelers get him, then they'll be happy. Brian Thomas Jr., I mean, you kind of put those 3 at the top there. Just below them, I put Brian Thomas. He is a monster. 17 touchdowns last year with Jaden Daniels as his quarterback. No more Deontay Johnson. Talent-wise, a huge steal at 20 for the Steelers.
Yeah, I completely
Absolutely. I mean, well, you got to think
right.
they had Malik Neighbors as well on the team. So having Malik, obviously he's going to get outshined a little bit, but he's right there. So again, I'm going great pick there. I love it.
And they're trying to build up that receiver core now in Pittsburgh. Obviously, Justin Fields came in, Russell Wilson comes in. They need that receiver core. I also think this will be beneficial if they can go and grab a player like Brian Thomas Jr., because I can very well see them making a deal with San Francisco as well, bring in Ayuk, and then
there you go.
That is a possibility.
But then
the rumors, Ryan Joyce.
We'll get into that, Kyle. We'll get into it.
Oh boy.
What are we talking about?
all right, we'll simmer down for the minute.
Simmer down.
Simmer down.
Come on, guys.
Simmer down. Yeah, I feel like Brian Thomas, I feel like in that division, you have the Ravens, you have the Browns, you need a playmaker to compete with those guys. And I feel like he can lead, learning behind or with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields in Pittsburgh. So we'll move over to the Miami Dolphins at 21. Kenny, who are we picking?
Well, I'm going to give them an offensive tackle in Troy Fautanu from Washington. I mean, he was great on the year. Only 2 sacks allowed on 993 snaps. Wow. And Washington was just one of those great teams, and I think he was a key part of that. He's one of the trench dogs we were talking about, and he was one of the anchors of the team. A 75.5 grade on Pro Football Focus. I mean, he's a great asset, and I think he can protect Tua in the backfield. It's just if Tua will perform for the Dolphins as well, but he have at least a little more protection with this pick.
And I think you have a good pick there. The only thing that worries me a little bit about with him, obviously he didn't give up many sacks on the year. He stood very tall all season long for Penix. We saw what Michigan did to them in that national championship game, and Michigan doesn't even have anybody really on their starting defense is popping out as a first round pick. Michigan kind of ran them. That's why we saw Penix getting pressured, and yeah.
I mean, that's why there's 5 guys on the offensive line. It wasn't just him. I mean, quick, nimble, on his feet. That's the description. If anybody could protect Tua there, just draft an offensive lineman.
No, I agree with that. I feel
protect the quarterback.
Never.
Yeah,
I mean, he was just protecting my pick. I mean, he's just like my Troy Fautanu right now.
There you
It was
go.
awesome. It worked.
and I feel like that was just a small sample size. I know Michigan ran over
The best
Washington.
defense in the country.
Boy, come
Yeah,
on. Yeah,
come on,
exactly.
come on.
A small sample size in national championship game. A lot of pressure there. So we'll move over to the Philadelphia Eagles, my favorite team.
You're an
And for
Eagles
the
fan?
number 20. Am I?
Since when?
You are?
I
Okay,
am.
cool.
Yeah.
Am I?
Team that collapsed at the end of the year, right?
All right, relax. Super Bowl loss.
I don't
against
care
the
who you
Chiefs.
pick. I'm booing.
Number 22, Cooper DeJean for the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, you see it right there. The Eagles need secondary. I mean, the tackling was terrible for the Eagles in their collapse last year. I mean, against Baker Mayfield, it feels like James Bradbury couldn't get anything going against Baker Mayfield. I mean, he had 3 touchdowns, 75 tackles in 2022. Kind of went down a little bit in production in 2023, but I feel like, with his stats, he had 2 interceptions, 41 total tackles. If Cooper DeJean ends up falling to the Philadelphia Eagles, I mean, he's making history, and I feel like he will be a home run pick out of Iowa.
Yeah, Brooks, I know I was kind of giving you crap, but it would be a really good pick here for the Eagles. I mean, 388 cover snaps last year. According to Pro Football Focus, 0 touchdowns allowed. And he also plays special teams as a punt returner and plays multiple positions there in the secondary. So you mentioned some guy to help out Slay. Can also maybe jump into that safety spot too as well. So really good player there for the Eagles if they pick him up.
Yeah, just quickly to add on that, we talked about Iowa's defense last year, and maybe even the year before that. I mean, it was nasty to play against them. They did not allow anything to opposing offenses, so he was a big part of that. A great college career, would be a great pick for the Eagles.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he gets picked for the Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday. We'll move over to number 23 to the Minnesota Vikings for Kyle Spisak, Minnesota's second pick. Who are we picking here?
And you stole my pick with Cooper DeJean, right? Right? You stole that pick from me.
If he's there.
But we'll see. Maybe he's there. But I'm gonna go with defensive back out of Clemson, Nate Wiggins. Very similar kind of player to a DeJean kind of player, and just throughout his seasons, you can see him improve. Didn't put the right tackles on, but that's supposed to be 52 tackles last season. So you see him year by year taking a bigger and bigger role within that Clemson defense, which notably, if you take a look, Stingley, they have really good defensive back talent that they bring out every year. And if you're the Vikings at that point, maybe you go and get your quarterback earlier on, as Kenny mentioned with J.J. McCarthy. You still need the defense. You got to beef up the defense as well, too. They kind of on the secondary end were a bit weak last season.
Yeah, just to add on that quickly, I mean, they describe him as a pesting coverage. He's a little small in size, only 6'1" and 173, so he'll bulk up a little bit. I think it would be a really solid pick for Minnesota.
Yeah, we talk about with Chicago getting offense and defense, so Minnesota kind of doing the same thing for their rival. We'll move over to Ryan Joyce, the Dallas Cowboys. You got the Rams and the Cowboys back-to-back. Who are we taking for Dallas?
Nasty.
Well, okay, so this might cause a little discussion here.
Here we go.
We are going to go with Michael Penix. Michael Penix from Washington. Jerry Jones has never been a conventional draft guy. Dak Prescott, really not a good quarterback, does not get it done every year. If you're going to get a quarterback here in the future, you want to get it done in this draft. Michael Penix Jr., dynamic player. It might cause a little confusion to some people because, like, oh, you have Trey Lance, you have a couple other guys there in that room. Really good player. I think if you're Jerry, get your guy now and make plays.
Just quickly, interesting pick here. Obviously, the Cowboys, the whole Dak situation, but Jerry loves his names.
Yep.
Saw a big name in the national championship.
He wants to get eyes on the Cowboys.
Of course,
more
that's true.
eyes, even more than they have.
I will say, Michael Penix, I've been saying this for a while, the most accurate quarterback coming into a draft I've ever seen. More accurate than Tua. Like, he is insanely accurate. I mean, the one problem is injuries. That's what people are worried about right now.
Yeah, exactly.
This isn't this is nothing against Penix. They have Trey Lance still. They have Dak Prescott.
Trey Lance. You know Trey Lance.
Yeah, you know Trey Lance.
Yeah, you would know him. No, this is a beef pick. You picked him because you're upset.
Games in like 9 years. Yeah, that guy's really good there, Kenny. Really good.
Penix has never even touched an NFL field yet.
Dynamic
Bad pick.
talent.
All right.
Boo, bad
Guys
pick.
on the
Boo,
team.
boo.
They keep it as it is this year. The Sanders take over next year.
Can't wait to talk to you guys Thursday.
We'll see.
Deion and Shador.
I'm sure our director, Mike Neckers, is loving us talking about Michael Penix to the Dallas Cowboys, but we'll move on. We are going to move on to the Green Bay Packers. Zach, go Pack go. Who are they picking?
There's no way this guy drops this far. It's Byron Murphy II. I don't know how he didn't get drafted already, but out of Texas, a really, really great player on the defensive line. I think there's a chance he could jump into the top 10, guys. He is that talented, and a lot of teams look at D-line, that guy, that noisy guy in the middle that just creates havoc. I mean, that's all Byron Murphy. If the Packers get him, they will be absolutely thrilled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they would be thrilled, and you're right. He could be a top 10 talent. I just don't think he will drop this far, but if it happens to go like our draft, I bet you the Pack fans are going to be extremely happy. So I think it's a no-brainer at that spot.
I mean, 45 quarterback pressures last year at Texas. In Green Bay, they have really good defensive players, and they love players on that line. Should be a really good player for them if he drops there.
And we were kind of seeing it in the playoffs. I mean, their defense was stepping up. I mean, they have a young team, and being able to add a defensive guy, a defensive potential superstar, I mean, that will be a home run pick for the Green Bay Packers. We'll move over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, Kenny, who are we picking for Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield?
Well, I'm going to take up here Chop Robinson from Penn State. They just lost Shaq Barrett. They need someone to fill the void. Now, he was tapering off in his later years, but I think Chop Robinson can come in and do some damage for the Buccaneers. You see right there, 15 total tackles, 12 solo, 1 pass deflected, 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. At a Penn State team that wasn't the greatest this year. Sorry, Kyle. But I think he performed within that system, and I think he'll do great things with Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
So quickly, I'm going to get Kyle's thoughts because you watch a lot more Penn State football than me. But I think the one thing coming out was talent off the roof. Really good potential.
Yep.
But he didn't really perform. We saw 4 sacks last year, so Kyle, you can take it away. But it just seems like he's a potential guy, but hasn't really gone through the roof yet in terms of productivity.
Raw natural talent is definitely there. He's quick off the edge. He's able to really beat out the tackles, get around, get good pressure on the quarterback. The problem is a little bit of a work ethic problem, maybe not spending as much time in the gym maybe as you want, or going as hard as many reps in practice. But those are things that if you can mold a player and get him motivated, throw a couple $1 million in from his face, you can convince a lot of people to do a lot of stuff. So I mean, I think that's a good pick to replace Shaq Barrett, who just left. So that's a good pick to take right there, and it's not a detrimental pick either. It's low enough in the first round where it's not like, oh, I blew a number 3 pick on this guy who's a bust. Caleb
This is a nice year been to me, Kyle. I mean, that was so nice and refreshing for you to be nice to me. Wow.
Shut up.
Let's go chop. I mean, come on. There we go. Chop it away.
Chop Robinson here. We'll move over to the Arizona Cardinals. For my pick, I'm going to take linebacker Peyton Wilson from NC State. I mean, we were talking about it. It's kind of like the theme here. Draft need an offense and a defensive player. I think the Cardinals are going to go defense with this one. I mean, Wilson helps with that Jonathan Gannon defense. They brought over Kazir White from the Eagles, and now they can have Wilson to pair along with him. I mean, you look at his stats, 69 total tackles, 6 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and he had 3 interceptions. So, he's all over the ball out in NC State. I mean, someone who's kind of a little overlooked by all of the defensive talent. I feel like the linebacker position's not really a heavy, like a deep class. So I feel like Peyton Wilson can kind of shine right there, being the first linebacker off the board.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that kind of just does everything. Mm-hmm. He's that middle linebacker that just causes havoc. I mean, the stats speak for themselves. 138 total tackles. I mean, 6 pass deflections, 3 picks, 1 forced fumble. I mean, everything you want in a linebacker. I think it would be a really solid pick for Arizona if they could add him. I don't know if he's going in the first round because of how much talent there is there, but I think it would be a solid pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a guy, fastest 40 time, 4.43 in the 40 time, 6'4", never bad to get size there in the NFL too as well. So I kind of think he's a borderline first rounder guy too, but he's a really good talent.
I think he's a Thad Castle. Thad Castle kind of player.
So now we're going to change it up a little bit for Spizak. We are going to move over to you because we need to have Joyce to get his 49ers pick. We are going to have you talk about the Buffalo Bills, your favorite team, the Buffalo Bills here.
We're so much.
Who are we picking for Buffalo?
Stop.
Right, Buffalo.
Dylan, our AP in my ear right now doing the Buffalo chant making me so angry. Yep. But I think they're going to take Troy Franklin out of Oregon. Yeah, my sleeper pick earlier in this draft. And like I mentioned earlier, his stats each year improved more and more. Him and Bo Nix had a really great connection together where he was able to find him wide open downfield. He's a great route runner. Not only can he run a draw straight down the field, just run all the way down, he is really good at making quick turns, able to make curls, cut inside, out routes. He's got good footwork, and that's really what the Bills need because Stephon Diggs is gone. Who do they have? Who's Josh Allen throwing to right now?
No, I think Troy Franklin is a great pick here. It's going to be an awesome receiver for Josh Allen to throw out some arm punts. I can't wait for that. But yeah, Troy Franklin, if Josh Allen decides to learn how to throw a ball a little bit shorter, I think he's a great pick. It's not a bad pick. It's just I don't want to hear from our guy in the back anymore.
Well, we'll move over from whatever Dylan's talking about in our ears. We'll move over to number 29, the Lions. Out in, they are going to pick the interior O-lineman Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon. I mean, you see it there. Lions, they were really close to being in that Super Bowl. I mean, they were ahead and they kind of collapsed against the 49ers. Joyce knows all about that too. But I feel like they need a lot of offensive line help to protect Goff. I mean, he had an 87.4 rating. I mean, he was top there in O-lineman, and I feel like for Jackson Powers Johnson, I mean, he's a big guy. I mean, he can fall into that center position, and he could be a generational center, franchise center for this Lions team moving forward.
No, I agree. I mean, quickly, I think, when you have 2 running backs like Gibbs and Montgomery, I know you're going to throw a young guy kind of in that center interior lineman role, but I think, get a guy there for the future to really help those guys out and obviously get Goff too as well. So that's a good pick. I think, he won the award for the best center in the FBS, so can't go wrong with that guy.
Yeah, I think just if you're Detroit, you can kind of air it wherever you want. I mean, you can only go up after last season. They keep going, and I think they're going to make a lot of noise once again. So I think it would be a really solid pick here.
And Oregon's a team that was averaging about 35 points a game all season long. If you're going to put up numbers like that, whether it's the Pac-12, which has weak secondary or not, you got to be able to protect your QB and give him the time to get the ball out of his hand. So.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to move back over to Speed, so we're kind of doing back to back here. The Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, we are splitting this one.
You are splitting
This
this
is a
one.
split
All
one.
right. Spees and Zach, who are we taking for the Baltimore Ravens?
I'll go. Yeah, we're taking for the Ravens Tyler Guyton, the offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. I think the biggest thing here, they lost Morgan Moses. He's on the Jets now. Go Jets. But, I mean, Tyler Guyton here, huge potential. 6'8", 322, an absolute tank on the line. And we've seen the run that the Ravens are on of just developing great offensive linemen. Obviously, Ronnie Stanley is dealing with injuries the last couple of years. Would be a great pick there.
And this is the kind of lineman you want, especially in a Baltimore kind of system where they're running it with Lamar. Lamar is obviously scrambling around all the time. You got to buy him at least a little bit of time so he's not just getting crushed every single play. Dylan Gabriel, Oklahoma. That's his play style too. He's a very run-heavy kind of guy. So you get somebody who's already used to that kind of play style, fit it in perfect, and Ravens don't really need to improve much else. There's not much else they can improve on. So,
And exactly, and it doesn't help to add more offensive linemen, especially for Lamar Jackson, who is a mobile quarterback. And he was close to getting to that Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. So both Lions and Ravens getting that offensive line, building through the trenches, trying to make that championship push. So we'll move over to a highly anticipated pick for Ryan Joyce over there, our 49ers insider. He doesn't have his mic, but he's going to be loud enough here. Ryan Joyce, who are we going with?
So I was thinking about the entire time if I wanted to go receiver or defensive lineman. I'm going to go with Adonai Mitchell from Texas. I think with the whole Ayuk situation going on, doesn't really seem like he wants to be there. This will be really telling when the actual draft does happen, what happens with this pick, because if we do go to receiver, I think it's going to be Adonai Mitchell or Ladd McConkey. We had those top guys earlier in the draft, obviously the Odunze and the Harrisons. This is kind of the second half where it could be the Keon Colemans, the McConkey, those kind of guys too as well. I think Adonai Mitchell is going to be a really good guy to replace Brandon Ayuk if we need to. Really good speed guy, great at creating separations. I remember at Texas made a lot of big plays there in the college football playoff games. Was really good in the air, could make plays off the separation. Not a great pass blocker or run blocker so far, because I think if you're going to play in a Kyle Shanahan offense, you're going to have to be a really good blocker because we do run the football a good amount. But he makes big plays in big games and a really good pick. A big size guy too, 6'3". So I think he could be a good guy replacing Brandon Ayuk.
And like you mentioned, he's clutch, big time guy. When the big time moments come around, that's when he appeared in 3-4 college football playoff games, 4 touchdowns throughout those games. So 2 with Georgia, 1 with Texas, puts up 4 touchdowns. Obviously this man's clutch, and even in this last college football game, somehow manages to get a foot in to keep Texas alive at the end of that Washington game. That's what you need if you're the 49ers.
Just the red zone. He's a huge threat in the red zone. So, I mean, that'll replace Ayuk.
I think he's got to be a polished route runner, but I think once he figures out, it'll be a really good piece here for the Niners team.
Yeah, definitely agree. And our last pick here, the Kansas City Chiefs. We got Kenny and Zach. They're tag teaming this pick. Which one are we going with? Kenny, who are we going with the Chiefs?
So I'm going to take wide receiver Ladd McConkey. Also, I love his name.
Great pick.
I love his name, and it's also part of the reason I picked him. But I mean, this feels like a safe pick here for the Chiefs. They need a receiver. And, I'll let you get into the stat. Let's hear what you got to say.
Yeah, just quickly. I mean, the entire season was, the Chiefs are going to draft a receiver in the draft. Okay, well, here you go. Here's the wide receiver. It's Ladd McConkey. Obviously, they haven't had a true wide receiver since Tyreek. Yes, Rashee Rice, but that's a whole different other situation that they're going to have to deal with. So, Ladd McConkey, come in and be the number one for a while.
Wow.
The only issue I have with that is you mentioned Tyreek, and that's how that was their last real receiver.
True.
Xavier Worthy, guys that runs a 4.1, 4.2, 40-yard. You need him like a Tyreek. They know how to work that style. You just run him down the field, gun it down to him. He just torches everyone.
That's fair, but I mean,
yeah.
But also
McConkey is gross.
They have those kind of players though already. The Hardmans and those kind of guys that just gonna run around for 8 years like they do in the Chiefs offense.
Yeah.
No, I think the end of this draft is gonna be huge. I was talking about it, just that other side of receivers. who's going to go that, 30, 31st kind of pick is going to be huge here. I think Keon Coleman could go. You mentioned Worthy.
I was about to say, Keon
Those
Coleman,
kind of
huge
guys
one.
are going to
Yep.
be huge to see where they go, who falls, but obviously you never know.
Well, that does it for our mock draft roundtable. I mean, you guys, we all kind of pitched in. We gave our hot takes. We gave our picks. And, I appreciate all of you guys for coming in here and just joining us for this NFL draft kickoff. So thank you for tuning in to the WTOP 10 NFL Draft Kickoff Show. Big thanks to Kenny Gerard and Kyle Spizak from the Kenny and Kyle Experience, along with Zach Malamud and Ryan Joyce from Laker Connections. Check out their shows this week on Wednesday and Thursday at 10:30 p.m., along with Stick to Sports tomorrow at 10:30. For myself, Alex Brooks, Kenny Gerard, Kyle Spizak, Zach Malamud, Ryan Joyce, our assistant producer Dylan Selensky, director Mike Neckers, and all the hardworking members of this broadcast. Happy Draft Week and have a great night.
Marvin Harrison.